Keeping venomous reptiles is an unforgiving hobby, requiring proper training and lots of experience. One simple mistake can be the difference between life and death. Remember, the most venomous snake in the world is the one that just bit you. There are no venomous snakes with training wheels. Just because you see viperkeeper handle snakes a certain way does not mean you should try it too.
Yeah, hi. How you doing? She's a little bit upset because now that she's a full-grown rhino viper, I put her and Pink and some of the other larger ones on a once every 2-week feeding schedule. So last week she didn't get fed, although she wanted food. So this week she'll get fed. Won't you, huh? Maybe? Yeah. So that rhino viper's from Benin in West Africa. It's hard to get any snakes out of Africa anymore. Certainly you're not going to see any from East Africa because East Africa has pretty much shut down export of their native fauna. Hi. Yeah. Alright, so I have to deal with Mr. Taipan here. So Mrs. Viperkeeper needs to move towards the door.
Yes, I'm vacating the premises. I don't like to be around when he works with the taipan.
Fortunately, I don't have any rodent smell on me, really. So, although he didn't get fed last week either because he was blue, I would like to. He hasn't gone in his trap box, and trap boxes are usually worthless unless the snake will actually go in there and be trapped.
Yeah, they've all caught on to what happens.
They don't like the door sliding closed, I guess. So I need to clean up a little bit, and it's best to have me, the only one, sort of in the room. Fortunately, he's generally okay when there's no food present, but we're going to find that out here in a minute. Well, since Mr. Taipan decided that he was going to go into his trap box, and my first intention was to come in the room and feed him this rat, but since he's currently trapped, it's a trap, I will offer this Benin rhino viper, who's head bobbing, as a tasty treat. Now we always try to maneuver it in a way that they don't get poked with the end of the forceps. Sometimes that's difficult. Successful this time. Now this is classic large bitis. They hold the animal off the ground so the animal can't get any footing and try to escape. And if you had those large fangs go into your chest and abdomen and then get filled with quite a bit of very toxic venom, your struggling days would be over rather quickly. So while I am cleaning the taipan cage, Mrs. Viperkeeper can entertain you with the munching down of the rat with the rhino viper. try to not make too much vibration and noise working below the rhino viper cage. I don't want to disturb her too much while she's trying to eat. I'll remove the dirtiest part of the substrate. Cobras and elapids in general are not very tidy housekeepers. They will deposit their poo just about.
Yes, do not forget that she's there right above you and the door is open.
Yes, if, you know, and I was like, okay, at least she had her mouth full. Yeah, so as I was saying, these guys aren't, any of the cobras and elapids are not very tidy snakes.
Well, and cobras are terrible. They like to paint the walls, the glass, the ceiling, everything with poop. They consider themselves quite the artists.
Yes. They certainly do.
Not sure if you can see there that one spot where the fang went in.
Is it bleeding
It's
a little
bleeding
bit?
a little bit, yep.
Yeah, even post-mortem, these enzymes in the snake venom have the ability to make clotted blood become unclottable again.
Look at the size of those fangs.
You stick your shedding against the wall of the cage. Sometimes you gotta wonder how they do some of these things.
Still nothing compared to the Russell's viper that rearranged its furniture.
Yeah, that was very impressive. I've never seen a snake lift a heavy log up and place it against the window like that one did.
As Mr. Viperkeeper would say, those are some serious meat hooks. She's maneuvering the rat so she swallows it head first, which is typical. It's much easier. Everything is aerodynamic that way. It's laying flat and goes down the throat much smoother.
rhino vipers are easy to startle, so I'm trying not to get her to stop eating and startle and do her. Most rhino vipers make this croaking sort of sound when they're frightened. It's really quite interesting and unique. So, in order not to put my head down at that end of the cage, I'll use the hook here to spread it out.
Yes, she could drop that rat in a heartbeat and shoot across the cage. Even when they've partially swallowed it, they can basically barf it up really fast.
Well,
we saw that, we saw Psycho do that one.
Yeah, I think also they could probably get a fang around the rat and into your hand or finger. I'm not willing to test that theory, but I wouldn't be surprised if they could. These are amazing predators, and they don't like to use their venom for defensive purposes, but will if absolutely necessary. Okay, so his cage is essentially done. We'll wait until she's done before we liberate the taipan again, and
Yes, he'll have to promptly go and poop so that the cage smells familiar.
yes, well, I will prepare a rat for him since he was so cooperative today. He'll quickly forget I inconvenienced him and stuck him in his trap box.
A bribe.
Well, I think, you know, I watch Jim and Kristen's videos at the Kentucky Reptile Zoo very often, and I've come to the conclusion that their animals are used to being handled on a very regular basis, whereas I don't handle my animals unless it's absolutely necessary. You know, they're a venom production lab, so you know, Jim removes those animals on a regular basis. I think like a 2 or 3 week cycle. Removes them from their enclosure or tub or whatever he keeps them in, and extracts venom, which requires, you know, of course, pinning them, and then putting them back in their bin. And you know, they're used to this after a while. They know the procedure, basically. It's not that they still don't try to bite him, but they're pretty impervious to the disturbance, and they go, you know, right back on feed shortly thereafter. Whereas my snakes, if I remove them from their cage, put them in a bin, or you know, manipulate them in any way, if I have to do a vet procedure or something like that, they will go off feed and be very butthurt for a long time, and sometimes not eat for a month or two. I think this has to do with the frequency at which they handle their animals versus the frequency at which I handle my animals. So we'll see if she will yawn afterwards, and you could get a nice view of her tusks. I know she's a happy camper right now. So that size of a rat is all I'll give her for 2 weeks, so she won't get fed again until today's Saturday the 4th. So, you know, add 14 days, so, you know, she won't get fed for a while, a couple of weeks. But this is how you keep your animals healthier and you don't get them obese.
Yes, feeding videos are exciting and, you know, everybody wants to see it, but it's, you know, if you do it regularly, it's a quick way to end up with a fat, sick snake. They are as prone to heart disease and everything else as the rest of us.
I see she picked up a little substrate in her mouth. I could try to remove it, but that would just irritate her. I've just decided, you know, in doing this for many years, it's like, although I see the substrate, I'll let the snake figure out how to get rid of it, because in the wild, they eat substrate on a regular basis and, you know, do quite well. So I'm not going to stress her out by sticking a pair of forceps close to her mouth to try to grab that little piece, and we'll just sort of let her go.
Now she's back to nodding at us.
Yeah.
She does have beautiful nose horns.
She does. She's not as brightly colored as, spit it out. Not as brightly colored as the Eastern African or Central African gaboons. The West African, rhino vipers, are a little bit more subdued in color than the East Africans. They're quite variable. You can, you know, I've seen a whole plethora of colors and shades, and, you know, the patterns are always the same. They're just colored in a different way. You know, from bright blues to yellows to reds, really quite spectacular. But, you know, those are sort of location specific, and as I explained earlier, a lot of these locations are in countries where you can't get exports from. Certainly there's not a lot of exports happening from the African continent because the countries have shut down animal collectors from the wild exporting animals. There's still smuggling that occurs, but it doesn't really sort of happen here because U.S. Fish and Wildlife is in place and screens every import coming in. It all has to have the correct paperwork from the place of origin, and then once it passes their stamp of approval, it's officially imported and turned over to you.
As soon as I turn this camera off, I just know she's going to yawn.
Yep. Boy, you know, my OCD is really getting the best of me here. I want to pull that little piece of substrate out, but I'll leave her. Also, we have to replace her water dish a little bit. One thing I notice, you know, after they eat, you know, big meals and stuff, they do belch quite frequently. Yep, there's a big burp. Got to get that air out that we got, you know, down there with the rodent. Boy, she is sort of talkative.
Yeah. Are you gonna give us a yawn?
No, because you've got the camera on me.
Of course. All right.
Yep, let's call it quits because Mr. Taipan needs to go back.
Yep.